For over 2 millennia, humanity has been relentlessly hunting for a city that, in all likelihood, never existed. The entire obsession traces back to a single source, two texts written by the Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BC, known as the Timaeus and the Critias. Plato described an empire larger than Libya and Asia Minor combined, laid out in concentric rings of land and water. He placed it in the Atlantic Ocean, just beyond the Strait of Gibraltar, what the Greeks called the Pillars of Hercules. To Plato's original audience, these geographical coordinates served a specific practical function. They were setting the stage for a philosophical thought experiment. Plato constructed Atlantis to be the ultimate villain in a political fable. They were a wealthy, decadent naval empire designed to represent the dangers of imperial overreach, intended to be defeated by an idealized version of his own home city, Athens. When the Atlanteans lose the favor of the gods, the story reaches its sudden climax. Violent earthquakes tear the island apart, and the entire continent is swallowed by the ocean in a single day and night. For centuries, readers understood this exactly as intended. Ancient scholars like Aristotle recognized the story as a moral allegory used to teach philosophy, completely devoid of historical fact. So, if the sharpest minds of antiquity knew this was a fable, why did it trigger a literal, centuries-long physical hunt? The answer rests in human psychology. As eras shifted, the desire to find a common, ancient origin point for all civilization began to overpower rational textual analysis. A story about morality slowly hardened into a physical obsession. The modern obsession with finding a real Atlantis took off in 1882, driven by an amateur scholar named Ignatius L. Donnelly. Donnelly took Plato's writings literally. He published a successful book claiming that Atlantis was the actual, physical origin point for all ancient human cultures, connecting the architectural dots between Egyptian pyramids and Mayan temples. This ignited a global craze. Explorers launched physical expeditions into the Atlantic Ocean, dusting off old maps that tried to jam Plato's fictional continent into real-world geography. By the 1960s, our understanding of plate tectonics proved that continents drift slowly over millions of years. They do not suddenly sink into the abyss overnight. The mid-Atlantic theory collapsed. Yet hopeful explorers simply shifted their focus to new, seemingly inexplicable discoveries. In the Bahamas, divers found the Bimini Road, a series of flat, distinctly rectangular stones resting on the seafloor that look suspiciously like human paving. Geologists have confirmed these are entirely natural rock formations. But the legend thrives because the human brain is hardwired to find orderly, man-made patterns in the natural world. While pseudo-archaeologists scoured the ocean floor, real archaeologists uncovered a genuine Mediterranean disaster that likely planted the seed for Plato's story, the sudden erasure of the Minoan civilization. In the mid-20th century, researchers unearthed Akrotiri. It was a sophisticated, multi-level settlement that had been perfectly entombed under volcanic ash. Before this disaster, the Minoans were a highly advanced maritime power, a dominant naval empire focused on trade and art, mirroring Plato's description of the Atlanteans. Around 1600 BCE, the island of Thera, now modern Santorini, experienced one of the largest volcanic eruptions in recorded history. The blast vaporized the very center of the island and generated massive tsunamis that devastated Minoan coastal cities. Egyptian scribes likely recorded the trauma of this catastrophic event. Over generations, those records were passed across the Mediterranean to the Greeks, eventually finding their way to Plato. The discovery of Akrotiri reveals how a real catastrophe can be reshaped by time. Plato likely took these actual Mediterranean records and used them as the physical foundation for his moral fable. Today, the scientific consensus is absolute. There is zero archaeological evidence that a literal continent of Atlantis ever existed. Plato claimed the city sank 9,000 years before his time. A sunken Atlantic landmass of that size, vanishing in that specific era, is geologically impossible. Yet the legend endures, largely because it taps into a universal human anxiety. It forces us to confront the inherent fragility of our own achievements. The terrifying concept of a wealthy, technologically advanced society wiped off the map in 24 hours acts as a dark mirror for modern fears. There is an irony built into this 2,000-year-old wild goose chase. The search for a fictional city ended up providing the momentum for actual scientific discoveries. Chasing this ghost motivated explorers to map the ocean floor. It helped give birth to the modern field of geoarchaeology, and it directly led to the unearthing of actual lost worlds like Akrotiri. The quest for Atlantis ultimately gave us the maps, the tools, and the drive to uncover the real history of our past.